was cleaning out the boathouse down by Beaver Lake, just outside of Rogers, Arkansas, when I found an old green tackle box covered in dust and spider webs. It belonged to my grandpa Eddie, best fisherman this town had known. Been gone near 15 summers now, but somehow that place still felt like home. Inside were lures and faded bobbers, a pocket knife worn smooth with age. Then underneath a bundle of line, I found an envelope tucked away. There was a photograph of Grandma June standing by the water in '58, and a little gold ring wrapped in paper with words scribbled on the page. It said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. I almost lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. That night I drove across the county to a little house on Maple Street, where a girl I'd loved since high school days had nearly become a memory. We sat beneath her front porch light while crickets sang through the dark, and for the first time in my whole life, I spoke straight from the heart. And it said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. Lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. 3 months later, down by the shoreline, where the water caught the evening glow, I slipped that old gold ring onto her hand and watched happy tears start to flow. Some treasures never come from the water, they're the ones hidden deep in your soul. Yeah, I found that ring someday, and I finally found the words I was afraid to say. Life still moves like a river runs, but now I ain't facing it alone. Grandpa's gone, but his lesson remains, carried through generations like a song. And every time I look at her thank him for holding on to that ring so long. Yeah, love was waiting in a tackle box all along. There's a pawn shop on the edge of Tulsa by the railroad line, where old guitars and wedding rings wait to outrun harder times. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, killing time on my lunch break, I walked inside that dusty room just to get out of the rain. Behind a shelf of hunting boots and yellowed photographs hung a battered violin with a crack across its back. A handwritten tag beneath it read, "Not for sale today." And something about that little note made me stop and stay. The owner was an old man named Charlie Reed, who'd worked that count of 40 years, maybe more than he believed. I asked him why that violin never seemed to leave the wall. He smiled and poured us both some coffee. Then he told me it all. Back in '87, when the oil fields went bust, a young father brought it in because he had to feed his son. Said he'd buy it back someday when life got back on track. But the years kept moving forward and he never made it back. So the violin in the pawn shop waits like a promise frozen in time and space, for a hand that remembers every note it knew, for a dream that never quite made it through. Some things are worth more than money can say, more than a price tag fading away. And every scar in that old wood sings of the lives we carry in little things. A month later, Charlie called me out of the blue. Said, "You ain't gonna believe who's standing here wanting news." An old man with silver hair and hands worn thin with age had walked into the shop asking about that very case. He said, "My daddy used to play that fiddle every night till hard times took it from him. When I was just a child, he passed before he got it back, but he spoke about it still, and I promised if I found it, I'd bring it home for him." Now the violin from the pawn shop sings in a house where grandchildren gather and dream. Its melody carries across the room like a voice returning after years of silence too. Some things are worth more than money can say, more than a lifetime drifting away. And every scar in that old wood sings of the lives we carry in little things. That night the family gathered on the porch under Oklahoma stars, and for the first time in 40 years they heard their grandfather's song. Not from a record or a story told, but from strings alive once more. And every note seemed to open up a long-forgotten door. Yeah, the violin from the pawn shop, came home after decades wandering alone, and the music filled the spaces time had left behind. Now when the evening settles down and the crickets start their choir, that old fiddle tells a story that survives every fire. 'Cause love don't disappear with years, and dreams don't always die. Sometimes they just wait patiently for the right hands to arrive. Cabin 12 sat at the edge of the lake, up in northern Idaho pines. Just a wooden dock, a tin roof, and a view that could stop time. Every summer since I was a boy, Daddy'd take me there in June. We'd fish till dark and tell old stories beneath the mountain moon. And life got busy like it always does. Jobs, bills, and growing old. Years slip by without noticing, like leaves before the cold. Daddy called every now and then, "Son, we ought to head up there." I'd always say, maybe next summer, thinking there'd always be one to spare. But the light in cabin 12 still burns inside my mind, like a beacon from the years I lost, calling me back through time. You think forever's waiting on you, till one day it slips away, and all that's left is a porch light shining on the memories that remain. Last October, we buried Daddy under a hill beside the church. And a week later, I found his keys in the pocket of his work shirt. So I drove north through the mountains alone, past rivers running cold and clear. And when I reached that old cabin porch, I had to stop and wipe my tears. 'Cause a light in cabin 12 still burns inside my mind, like a beacon from the years I lost, calling me back through time. You think forever's waiting on you, till one day it slips away, and all that's left is a porch light shining on the memories memories that remain. Inside I found his tackle box, his coffee mug beside the chair, and a note that simply read, "Glad you made it here." I don't know when he wrote those words, but somehow they found me right on time. Yeah, the light in cabin 12 ain't just glowing by the lake. It's every chance we get to love before it's gone someday. Now every June I bring my son, and we fish beneath those pines while the evening settles on the water and the stars begin to shine. And when cabin 12 lights up at dusk, I swear Daddy's still there somehow, smiling from that old porch swing, watching over us now. There's a little red bicycle hanging in the barn, covered in dust beneath the rafters and stars. The paint's chipped off, the tires are flat, but I can't bring myself to throw it out. I found it this morning while cleaning the loft, sunlight pouring through the cracks. And just like that, I was 12 years old, with the whole world at my back. Daddy ran beside me down that gravel lane, one hand steady on the seat. Said, "Keep your eyes where you wanna go, not on the ground beneath your feet." I still remember letting go of fear as the summer wind filled my face, hearing him laugh somewhere behind me when I finally found my pace. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things rust, some things fade, some things fade. Some dreams don't turn out like you planned, but a father's voice can echo forever from a bicycle in a barn. My son came out while I stood there smiling, asked, "Dad, what's that doing here?" I pulled it down and brushed off the dust and told him stories he'd never hear. By sunset, were fixing chains, pumping air into worn-out tires. And for a moment, the three generations were standing in that barn together. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are, before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things rust, some things fade, some things fade. Some dreams don't turn out like you planned, but a father's voice can echo forever from a bicycle in a barn. That evening down the county road, my boy wobbled, laughed and swayed, and I heard myself say the very words my daddy said that day. Keep your eyes where you wanna go. Yeah, that bicycle in the barn became more than an old memory. It carried lessons through the years, like a family legacy. And when my son rode off alone, with the sunset painting gold across the land, I saw my father riding with him from a bicycle in the barn. Yeah, some gifts don't come wrapped in paper. They wait for years in a dusty barn. Out on the Carolina coast, where the Atlantic meets the sand, there stood a lonely lighthouse built by weathered working hands. My daddy kept that beacon burning through every storm that came, while I dreamed of bigger cities and a life beyond the waves. Every night he'd climb those stairs with a lantern and a key, while cargo ships crossed dark horizons far beyond the sea. He'd say a light ain't measured by how far away it shines, it's measured by the lives it helps make it home alive. At 18 I left Hatteras with a suitcase and a plan, certain there was something greater waiting for me inland. I spent 20 years in boardrooms wearing polished shoes and ties, building things that look successful through everybody's eyes. Then one winter I got a call from a number I didn't know. The keeper's house was empty now, and Dad was gone. I flew back through a freezing rain to that familiar shore, and found his boots beside the door, like he just stepped out once more. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and it took me half to learn where I came from. You can chase every distant skyline underneath the sun, but some lights keep guiding you long after they're gone. Through the fog and through the storms, through every road I wandered on, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home. The town was planning to close the tower by the bay. Modern systems made it obsolete, or so the experts claimed. But as I walked those spiral stairs, I saw Dad's name carved deep beside 100 others who had kept watch over the sea. So I stood before the county board and made a different case. Said this lighthouse isn't concrete, steel and paint. It's every life that found the harbor when the ocean turned black, and somehow the whole room rose up and brought the old tower back. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and it took me half a lifetime to learn where I came from. You can chase every distant skyline underneath the sun, but some lights keep guiding you long after they're gone. Through the fog and through the storms, through every road I wandered on, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home. Now every year on Father's Day, I climb those stairs alone, watch the beams sweep across the waves, and think about all I've come to know. The strongest men don't always build the tallest things you'll see. Sometimes they simply leave behind a reason to believe. Yeah, I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and the older that I get, the more I understand. A good life ain't about the miles or money that you've won. It's about the people who become your guiding stars. Through the fog and through the storms, their lessons carry on. I'm the lighthouse keeper's son, and his light still leads me home. Yes, his light still leads me home. The scoreboard lights are flickering above the 50-yard line. October wind rolled through the stands on a cold Nebraska night. I sat alone on the top row where I used to hear them cheer. Now the bleachers felt a little bigger with every passing year. There was a time I wore that jersey with my number on the back. Thought Friday nights would last forever underneath those stadium lamps. But life moves faster than a fastball, stronger than your plans. One day you're chasing glory, next day you're shaking working hands. Now I punch the clock at sunrise at the grain mill by the tracks. Got 2 kids who wear my old cleats and a mortgage on my back. The mirror shows a little gray where the dark used to be, and the dreams I thought I'd lost are staring from the stands at me. My oldest boy ran on to the field wearing number 23, same nervous smile I used to hide before the referee's whistle blew for me. And suddenly I understood what all those years were for. Some victories arrive much later than the ones you're keeping score. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The game was tied in the 4th quarter with 2 minutes left to play. My boy threw a pass down the field and the whole town lost its mind that day. The crowd erupted like thunder rolling across the plains, but what hit me harder was the pride running through my veins. Afterward we drove home slowly beneath the starry sky. He talked about the winning play while I just smiled and drove, because someday he'll leave this town and chase a dream beyond these roads. And when he does, I hope he learns the thing I finally know. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The wheat turns gold and falls away, winter comes and spring returns again. The years keep rolling like a train, but every season leaves a gift behind. When the final whistle blows, I won't remember every score, I'll remember who was standing there when I walked through every door. So give me one more season of ordinary days, one more sunrise shining through the window's dusty haze, one more Sunday church bell echoing through the air, one more chance to tell my family just how much I care, one more season of memories still waiting to be made, one more season watching children slowly find their way. And when the good Lord calls me home beyond these fields of gold, I'll thank him for the seasons more than anything I own. There's an old brass key above the kitchen door, hanging from a crooked nail since '74. Most folks never notice when they walk inside, but Grandpa said that key saved our lives. Back when Kentucky coal jobs disappeared and hard times settled in for years, bills piled high and hope ran low, like winter snow along the road. One December night a stranger knocked, cold rain dripping from his coat. Said his truck broke down beyond the ridge and nowhere else was open. Grandma fed him beans and cornbread, Grandpa gave him a place to stay. Before he left the next morning, he quietly handed them that key. That key above the door reminds us you never know what kindness starts. One small act can change a lifetime, leave a mark upon a heart. When you're down to almost nothing and the world feels cold and far, sometimes grace shows up uninvited and leaves a light where darkness was. A month later, Grandpa lost his job and thought he'd have to leave the land. But then a letter came from Lexington, signed by the same stranger's hand. He owned a growing hardware company, needed someone he could trust. Said a man who helps a stranger in the rain is the kind of man I want. That key above the door reminds us you never know what kindness starts. One small act can change a lifetime, leave a mark upon a heart. When you're down to almost nothing and the world feels cold and far, sometimes grace shows up uninvited and leaves a light where darkness was. Now every Christmas Eve we gather, kids and grandkids packed inside, and Grandpa's story gets retold. The snow drifts past the window light. That old brass key still catches candle glow, like a blessing frozen in time. Yeah, that key above the door reminds us the richest things can't be bought. A warm meal, an open doorway, and helping hands when hope is lost. The world keeps spinning faster, but some truths never get too old. You never know which simple kindness might come back 100-fold. So we leave that key right where it's been, above the door for all to see. A reminder that a stranger once arrived and changed our family.
There's a pair of worn-out cowboy boots still sitting by the back screen door, covered in dust from 1,000 mornings, like they're waiting to walk once more. They cross the fields of western Kansas, through drought and rain and harvest time, and every scuff upon that leather marks a chapter of a life. My older brother wore those boots the first day he took over the farm, when Daddy's shoulders couldn't carry all the weight of keeping us strong. He gave up college, gave up freedom, stayed behind when he could have gone, while the rest of us chased our futures. He kept this family moving on. Those boots by the door tell a story of sacrifices nobody sees, of early mornings, broken fences, and hands worn down by duty. Yeah, heroes don't always wear medals. Sometimes they wear dust and dreams, and leave behind a trail of footprints for the rest of us to follow clean. Last spring we laid him in the churchyard, beneath the cottonwood on the hill. The whole town showed up that Sunday, and somehow the world stood still. Mama cried into my shoulder as the church bell softly rang, and all I could think about was how much one quiet man had changed. Those boots by the door tell a story of sacrifices nobody sees, of early mornings, broken fences, and hands worn down by duty. rest of us to follow clean. Last week my nephew slipped them on, though they're still 3 sizes too large. He smiled and said, "One day I'll wear these." And I felt something in my heart. Yeah, those boots by the door keep speaking, though the man who wore them's gone. For every lesson, every memory, his spirit keeps living on. And when that boy grows into them, like his father did before, a new chapter will begin again, with those boots by the door. Yeah, some legacies aren't written in stone. They're waiting by the door at home.
Bought an old farmhouse outside of Lexington, white paint peeling off, porch leaning toward the sun. The realtor said it's been empty near 30 years or more, the kind of place where memories still creep through every floor. I spend my Saturdays fixing boards and patching cracks, pulling down old wallpaper nobody wanted back. Then one rainy afternoon, behind a bedroom wall, I found a faded envelope that looked like it survived it all. The paper smelled of dust and time, the ink was turning brown. It started to whoever finds this, if this house is still around. It was written by a farmer's wife in 1953 to a child she was carrying, but knew she'd never see. She wrote about the dog they had, the willow by the creek, how his father sang while working and prayed before he'd sleep. She said, if life gets hard someday, don't let bitterness take a root. The strongest hearts are often grown where storms have passed on through. And I read every word by the light of a lamp, like a voice reaching out through the years and the dust, from a woman I'd never know, in a world long gone away, still finding a way to say, hold on to the people you love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter for days, so I started digging through records, old archives and names. Turns out she passed that same year before her son was born, and he grew up in that farmhouse where she never saw him grow. The boy became a teacher and lived into his 80s, raised 3 daughters of his own, and left behind a family. I tracked one granddaughter down in Bowling Green one night, and when she read her grandmother's words, she broke down and cried. She read every word by the light of her phone, like a hand reaching out from a place she'd never known, from a woman she'd only seen in a picture on the wall, still answering a call to hold on to the people you love. Don't wait too long to speak, 'cause time keeps moving like a river, and tomorrow ain't guaranteed. There's 100 ways to leave your mark. Most of them won't make the news. Sometimes forever starts with paper and the truth you choose to leave behind. The house still stands beside the willow, the creek still runs the same, and now that letter rests inside a frame where no one will forget her name. Yeah, I keep those words beside the door where I can read them when life gets hard. A reminder that we're all connected by the stories in our hearts. And long after these walls are gone, long after I'm gone too, maybe somebody else will find a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind. Yeah, a piece of hope hidden in the things we leave behind. Rode into Cedar Creek at 10:30 with a rusted duffel bag and a past full of sin. The church bell rang through the Alabama air like it still remembered a boy who grew up there. Mama's porch light glowed at the end of the lane. Same white swing, same window pane. I stood in the gravel with my boots in the dust, wondering if this town still had room for us. 10 years gone chasing city neon signs, trading quiet sunsets for overtime. I lost a good woman somewhere along the way, missed birthdays and Christmas Day. Daddy's old toolbox sat beside the barn, covered in rust but still holding strong. That's when I learned what I'd been running from. A man ain't rich if he's got no one. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine without the city lights, back to the roots I left behind. I thought freedom lived somewhere far away, down endless highways I could never stay. But every road I took led me to see home was waiting back in Cedar Creek for me. Now the wheat fields dance in the evening wind, and the boy I was is alive again. Mama laughs while the coffee brews, talking about all the things I used to do. The scars are there, but they don't define every wrong turn shaped this life of mine. And when the sun drops low beyond the trees, I finally feel a little peace. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine without the city lights, back to the roots I left behind. I thought freedom lived somewhere far away, down endless highways I could never stay. But every road I took led me to see home was waiting back in Cedar Creek for me. The miles don't disappear, they become part of your soul. Every broken mile marker helped me find the road. And the man looking back in that old truck glass ain't the same young fool from the past. I'm back to Cedar Creek, where the church bells ring, where the river keeps telling the same sweet thing, where forgiveness grows like summer rain, washing years of hurt away. I spent a lifetime searching for what I couldn't see. Turns out home was the thing that rescued me. And under these Alabama stars tonight, I'm finally where my heart belongs. 30 miles outside of Tucson, my old Chevy coughed and died on a lonely stretch of desert highway, under 100 miles of sky. The radio faded into static, the sun sank red behind the hills. I kicked the tire and laughed at my luck. as the evening air turned still. And a dusty Jeep pulled off the shoulder. A woman stepped out with a smile. She said, "Looks like that truck's had enough. Mind if I stay a while?" She knew engines better than I did, had grease stains on her hands. And while we were beneath that fading light, I forgot all my broken plans. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up when the earth was dry. Out of nowhere, cool and wild, changing everything in a little while. I spent years chasing distant dreams, looking for what I thought I needed. But love rolled in with desert clouds, like Arizona rain. We found a roadside cafe open late, just past an old gas station sign. Talked until the waitress stacked the chairs and the stars took over the night. She told me she'd been running too, from a life that didn't fit. Funny how two strangers on a highway can find exactly what they missed. Like Arizona rain in July, you showed up when the earth was dry. Out of nowhere, cool and wild, changing everything in a little while. I spent years chasing distant dreams, looking for what I thought I needed. But love rolled in with desert clouds, like Arizona rain. The next morning brought a thunderstorm, dark clouds drifting across the plain. She laughed and pointed at the horizon, said, "Guess somebody knows our names." And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. Like Arizona rain in July, you turned a dead-end road into a new life, a broken truck into a story, and a lonely heart into something alive. Now every summer when the monsoons roll and thunder echoes through the canyons again, I thank the heavens for that desert road and the day you came. Like Arizona rain, yeah, some blessings don't fall twice, but one good storm can change your life. I saw her standing by the gas station out on Highway 84. A summer storm was rolling in, thunder shaking the store. She held a cardboard coffee cup hair dancing in the wind. And something in that moment made the whole world slow again. I offered her a ride to town before the clouds broke loose. She laughed and said, only if you're playing something good with roots. An old country song came through the speakers, crackling low. And somewhere between two verses, I forgot where I was going. We spent that Friday driving roads that barely had a name, crossing little county bridges while the sky poured down like rain. She told me about Georgia and the dreams she left behind. I told her how I'd built these walls one heartbreak at a time. The windshield wipers kept the beat as evening settled in, and every mile beside her felt like a place I'd never been. Not because the road was new, but because she made it shine like sunlight breaking through a storm I'd carried for a long time. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town, like a melody drifting from an old FM. And I fall in love all over again. She turned gray skies into gold somehow, made forever feel like right now. Every drop that hits this roof tonight still whispers her name in the rain outside. 3 years later by the river, where the willow shadows sway, I got down on one knee at sunset as the daylight slipped away. She cried before I asked the question, said yes before I spoke, and the river carried echoes through the Tennessee smoke. Now there's a photograph beside our bed from that summer stormy day. Two young hearts beneath the station sign while the clouds rolled away. Sometimes life arrives so quietly, you almost miss the sign. Then one unexpected moment changes everything inside. Now every time the rain comes down, I hear her laughing through this town, like a melody drifting from an old FM. And I fall in love all over again. She turned gray skies into gold somehow, made forever feel like right now. Every drop that hits this roof tonight still whispers her name in the rain outside. People spend their whole life searching for a feeling they can't explain. I found mine on a roadside shoulder in the middle of a summer rain. And when we're old and the years move on, when silver finds her hair, I'll still thank those storm clouds rolling in for leading me right there. So let the rain keep falling down across these fields outside our town. Every drop's a memory I can't replace of the day heaven put her in my way. She turned a passing storm into a lifetime, turned a lonely road into a finish line. And every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain. Yes, every night when the thunder rolls again, I still hear her name in the rain. the corner of Gate 12 at Nashville International sat an old upright piano, worn smooth from years of travelers' hands. Businessmen, young dreamers, soldiers heading overseas would stop and play a song or two before disappearing with the breeze. Most folks walk right past it, chasing flights and deadlines fast, never knowing every scratch upon that wood belonged to someone's past. But every Tuesday just past noon, an old man took that seat and played melodies so beautiful the whole terminal grew still. Nobody knew his story much, except he wore a faded cap and carried a photograph folded in his jacket flap. One afternoon I missed my flight and wound up listening near when he started playing Amazing Grace. I noticed tears. After the crowd had drifted off, I finally asked his name. He smiled and said, "I'm Walter, music's why I came." Then he pointed to the photograph he'd carried all those years, a young woman at that same piano, smiling ear to ear. At the piano at Gate 12, time slows down for a little while. Strangers become stories, and sorrow learns to smile. Every note carries somebody, every chord recalls a name, and for a few sweet minutes, we're all travelers just the same. He told me back in '89, his wife sang in the local bars before cancer took her voice and left silence where songs are. On her final day, she made him promise through the pain, don't let the music leave this world when I can't sing again. So every Tuesday for 20 years he'd come and keep that vow, playing her favorite songs for people rushing through somehow. And nobody realized the reason behind those melodies until a reporter shared the story nationwide one week. At the piano at Gate 12, time slows down for a little while. Strangers become stories, and sorrow learns to smile. Every note carries somebody, every chord recalls a name, and for a few sweet minutes, we're all travelers just the same. The next Tuesday something happened no one there could have planned. 100 people gathered round, singing softly hand in hand. Flight crews, kids and weary strangers filled the terminal with sound. And Walter sat there crying as his wife's favorite song echoed around. Now the piano at Gate 12 still stands beneath those airport lights, and every Tuesday people gather before their flights take flight. Some come for the music, some come for the story told, but everyone leaves remembering that love can outlive growing old. Yeah, the piano at Gate 12
still keeps her song alive.
Murphy's Cafe off Route 66. There's a chair by the window, table 6. Every morning at 7, the coffee gets poured, even though nobody walks through that door. Old Joe runs the place like he always has. Wipes down the counter, checks the gas, and right beside the jukebox glowing blue sits a plate nobody ever moves. Back in 2005, a young Marine named Ben, he used to stop by every Friday with his friends. He'd order chicken, fried steak, and peach pie too. Leave $1 in the jar before he flew. Then one spring he shipped overseas, promised his mama he'd be home by Christmas Eve. But fate had different plans that year, and the whole town learned the meaning of fear. So the empty chair at table 6 still waits where he used to sit, beside the window facing west, toward the sunset he loved best. And every soul who walks inside knows the reason why some heroes leave this world too soon, but they never really say goodbye. Years rolled by like freight trains in the night. Kids grew up and the town changed with time. The old gas station closed, the hardware store moved on, but that chair stayed right where it belonged. Then one July afternoon, a little boy asked why his grandpa always tipped his hat when he walked by. The old man smiled and pulled up a seat and told a story every child should keep, about the empty chair at table 6, still waiting where he used to sit, beside the window facing west, toward the sunset he loved best. And every soul who walks inside knows the reason why some heroes leave this world too soon, but they never really say goodbye. No statue stands in that small town square, no headlines carry his name anymore, but sometimes the strongest monuments are the ones behind ordinary doors. A cup of coffee, a faded photo, a place nobody dares replace, because memory lives a little longer when love is given space. And the empty chair at table 6
still waits where he used to sit, while the morning sun spills through the glass, and another year quietly passes. New faces come, old faces go. That's how life unfolds. But every heart that learns his story carries a piece of him forward. Yeah, the empty chair at table 6 ain't empty after all.
I was 23 and reckless, working shrimp boats off the coast. Thought I had forever waiting, thought a young man couldn't lose much. She ran the bait shop by the harbor, with salt wind tangled in her hair. Every morning she'd wave me out, standing on that weathered pier. Came September's angry waters, black clouds rolling from the sea. The radio warned all vessels, turn around immediately. But pride can be a dangerous compass when you're trying to prove you're strong. I pushed farther into open water, and before long, everything went wrong. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the waves were high as mountains and hope was hanging by a thread, the light kept reaching through the darkness till it led me back instead. The engine died around midnight and the sea threw me around. I thought about her waiting on the shoreline, praying I'd be found. Then through the sheets of rain and thunder, a single beam broke through the black. I pointed my bow toward that light and somehow found my way back. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the waves were high as mountains and hope was hanging by a thread, that light kept reaching through the darkness till it led me back instead. That was 20 years ago this autumn. Now my hair's turning gray, and every time I pass that shoreline, I still bow my head and pray. Some lights are built from stone and steel, some shine inside a faithful heart, and both can save a drifting soul. When the world falls apart, yeah, the lighthouse at Cape Fear still stands against the passing years, and
the storm, that refused to give up on me. Yeah, some miracles don't make the news, they just got a man back home.
The auction sign went up in June beside the county road, right where my granddad carved his name in a cedar fence post. 80 years of Oklahoma dirt, 3 generations deep, was gonna leave our family when that auctioneer would speak. The drought had hit us hard that year, then harder still the next. Bank notices stacked on the table like a pile of unpaid debts. I watched my father stare across those fields of dying grain, like a captain watching helpless while his ship sank in the rain. By auction day the whole town came, pickups lined the lane, neighbors leaning on the fences. Underneath the sky of gray, the tractors stood like soldiers, waiting for a final call. And every tool inside that barn held memories on its walls. The auctioneer climbed on the trailer, cleared his throat and smiled, started reading numbers fast, while Mama held back tears. And from the crowd old men stepped up, folks I'd known my whole life through. And one by one they started doing something nobody expected them to do. When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. Mrs. Parker bought the combine that her husband used to run. The sheriff bought the cattle gates, the preacher bought a gun, not for keeping, just for saving what we thought was gone for good. Every bid became a promise written where hope once stood. Then old Hank Wilson raised his hand for the final piece of land. Silence fell across the crowd as he made his stand. He bought the acreage outright and turned toward my dad and said, "This farm belongs to your family, that's all that needs be said." When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud. He's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. The rain arrived 3 days later, rolling in across the plains, like heaven heard the voices of folks carrying each other's pain. Some things grow better than wheat fields,
Some things run deeper than roots, and when the world starts breaking, there's people that pull you through. Now every year, when harvest comes and combines roll beneath the sun, I hear that auction bell again, echoing across the wind, not as a sound of losing ground, but proof that love still gathers round. And if this farm outlives my days, I'll thank that town in 1,000 ways. Yeah, the auction bell still rings somehow, and every golden harvest now.
The doctor shook his head last April, said take it easy, slow things down. But my granddad just smiled and tipped his cap, looked out across that Oklahoma ground. 82 years in those same fields, watching seasons come and go. He said a man don't quit on the land he loves till it's time for the Lord to call him home. We planted corn beneath the rainy sky, like we'd done since I was 10. His hands were worn like old leather gloves, but they still knew where to begin. Every sunrise found him on that tractor, rolling slow through rows of green, teaching me lessons he never wrote down, in ways only farmers mean. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season, hearing that meadowlark call. One more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart, like one more harvest before the dark. October came with amber fields waving, the biggest crop we'd seen in years. We worked side by side through the cool morning air, laughing louder than our fears. Then one November Sunday morning, he passed away in his favorite chair, with harvest dust still on his boots, and peace resting everywhere. Just one
beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart, like one more harvest before the dark. Now every spring, when the fields awaken and fresh green rises from the earth, I swear I see him right in those horizons, smiling at what his life was worth. Just one more harvest, that's all he asked. Not riches, not glory, just time that lasts. To watch the wheat bend beneath the sky, and hold the ones he loved nearby. Now I carry on where his story ends. Through every season the good Lord sends, and when the sunset settles on those plains, I thank him for one more harvest again.
Morning fog was hanging low on the Blue Ridge line. An old red barn stood crooked where we spent our younger time. I rode through town on Highway 221, past the diner by the courthouse where my story had begun. Mama's porch light faded in my rear view years ago, chasing bigger dreams through cities that never felt like home. I traded mountain sunsets for a skyline made of steel, but every mile I wandered left a wound that wouldn't heal. Worked the night shift winters in the cold Tennessee rain, carried more regrets than dollars, riding freight trains through the pain. Then a letter from my brother showed up worn, stained with age, said, "Dad still leaves your fishing pole beside the river every day." I stopped beside an overlook as daylight slipped away, watched the mountains turn to shadows, and I heard my conscience say, some roads are meant for leaving, some are meant to bring you back. And I finally turned the wheel toward the life I used to have. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river bend, where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name like they always will. I'm coming back, I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. Dad was standing by the mailbox when I pulled into the drive, a little older, a little slower, but the fire was still alive.
He didn't say much when he hugged me in the fading evening light. Some things don't need explaining when you've been gone half your life. Mama set an extra plate and laughed the way she used to do. The radio's playing old songs drifting through the room. And for the first time in forever, I felt the weight release, like the mountains wrapped around me and handed back my peace. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells are ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river bend, where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name, like they always will. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. You can spend your whole life running from the boy you used to be, but the roots beneath your footsteps grow deeper than you see. And when the world gets heavy and the highway loses light, home is more than a place, it's the reason you survive. I'm finally back in the Blue Ridge Hills, where the sunrise paints the valleys and the time stands still, with my family beside me and the river rolling slow. There's a kind of peace you'll never find out on your own. Every long road brought me to this front porch view, to the memories I left and the dreams that came true. Now these mountains hold my heart like they always will. I'm finally home, in the Blue Ridge Hills.
There's a pair of work boots hanging from the old water tower just outside a town called Red Oak, Oklahoma. Faded leather, cracked and worn, swinging in the prairie wind since before I was born. As a kid I'd ask my daddy every time we drive by, why's nobody taking those boots down from the sky? He'd just grin and say, one day you'll understand. Then he'd shift that old truck into gear and head across the land. Years later at 17, I learned the story true about a man named Caleb Ross that only old-timers knew. He worked every ranch for 50 miles around, fixing fences after storms when they came crashing down. One summer brought a wildfire racing through the plains, the kind that turns the daylight orange and makes grown men pray. When the flames jumped Miller Creek and headed straight for town, Caleb stayed behind to help while everybody else got out. And those shoes by the water tower still dance small thing. For 20 hours straight he worked with volunteers, digging lines and moving cattle through smoke and fear. The fire finally turned away just north of County Road 9, and every family made it out with a little luck and time. The next morning when the danger passed and the sky turned blue, the town gathered at the diner trying to figure out what to do. The mayor climbed a ladder with Caleb standing near and tied those old work boots high above the water tower sphere. Now those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. Caleb never liked attention, never made a speech or boast, said I only did what anybody would have done. But everyone knew better, 'cause when fear was running wild, he chose to stay and fight while others ran for miles. So the shoes by the water tower still catch the evening sun, watching over fields of wheat and children out having fun. And every new generation asks why they're hanging there. Then somebody tells the story, and Caleb's still with us somewhere. Yeah, those shoes by the water tower still dance in the prairie air. There was a man in Amarillo everybody knew by sight, riding an old green bicycle from morning until night. No fancy truck, no business sign, no ads in any paper, just a paint-stained denim jacket and a pocket full of brushes. He'd stop at farms and trailer parks, little houses off the road, painting names on rusty mailboxes where the prairie grasses grow. $10 if you had it, free if times were running tight, and somehow every mailbox looked brand new in the evening light. Nobody knew much about him except his name was Ray. He never talked about the past or where he'd come from anyway. But every Sunday after church, he'd sit beneath the cottonwoods, sketching barns and windmills like nobody else could. Then one spring a tornado tore through Carson County hard, ripped roofs off homes and scattered lives across 100 yards. Families lost photographs, letters, keepsakes from the years, the kind of things that can't be fixed with lumber, nails, and tears. That's when the man who painted mailboxes picked up more than paint and steel. He started painting memories Some things survive if they're remembered still. For months he worked inside the church, from sunrise until dark, turning faded snapshots into pieces of the heart. One by one the townsfolk came to see what he could do, and every painting brought back pieces of the lives they once knew. Then a reporter from Dallas came asking for his name, said the whole state's talking about these beautiful works he'd made. Ray just smiled and shook his head, said the story ain't about me, it's about helping people hold on to what they thought they'd never see. Yeah, the man who painted mailboxes picked up more than paint and steel. He started painting memories for folks trying to heal. Oh, wedding days and harvest moons, grandmas dancing in the fields, and every brushstroke seemed to say, some things survive if they're remembered still. When autumn came, he disappeared just as quietly as he'd arrived. Left no address, no forwarding trail, just colors that were left behind. But in the church hall hangs a sign, written by a child one day. Thank you for bringing back our stories, and nobody ever took it away. Now every mailbox down those roads still shines beneath the Texas sky, but what folks talk about these days ain't the names he painted on the side. It's how one stranger showed a town that healing takes more than time. And sometimes the richest people in the world leave everything behind. Yeah, sometimes the richest people in the world leave everything behind. On a gravel road in northern Montana, where the winters cut like glass, there stood a one-room general store that somehow still managed to last. The sign was faded, the floorboards grown, the coffee pot stayed warm, and folks stopped in for more than feed whenever there was a storm. Old Miss Evelyn ran the place since 1979. She knew every kid, every ranch, every hard and troubled time. But what folks talked about the most was a rusty iron key hanging from a nail above the door for everybody to see. Nobody locked their houses much back when the town was young, but times changed like the weather, and trust grew harder to come by. Still that key stayed hanging there through every passing year, and if you asked Miss Evelyn why, she'd smile and say it's here. For the day somebody needs it more than pride will let them say. For the day a soul gets stranded and can't find another way, then she'd pour another coffee and go back to her routine, leaving folks to wonder what she really meant. That's the key above the door, for the lost and the worn, for the hearts carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. Then came the blizzard of '08, the worst anybody knew. Wide walls of snow swallowed fences, trucks, and every familiar view. A ranch hand named Miguel got caught 30 miles from town. His engine quit, his radio died, and the temperature kept dropping down. By pure luck, he found the store near midnight in the storm. The windows dark, the streets deserted, not another soul around. But there beside the entrance, hanging where it always had been, was that rusty iron key and a note tucked underneath. It said, if you're reading this tonight, come inside and get warm. There's soup in the freezer, blankets in the back room. Pay it forward when you can. That's the key above the door, for the lost and the worn, for the hearts carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. The next spring folks gathered around and asked Miss Evelyn why. She said, my daddy taught me something before the day he died. He said, kindness ain't kindness if it waits for recognition. The best things people do are usually done unseen. Now the key above the door still hangs where it hung before, and travelers tell stories about what that little town stands for. Not the mountains or the cattle, not the rivers running wide, but the simple faith that somebody will help you through the night. Yeah, the key above the door still leaves a light behind.